Hello.
Good evening.
Nick, are you muted?
There we go.
Oh my gosh, every time.
Yeah, really.
Oh no!
Hey, Joe.
I
I was
have a
going to
ghost walking around.
name. I was going to
Hey,
change
Howie.
your name, and it won't let me
It won't let you do what?
change your name.
Oh,
I was going to change your name from Nick Muley to Nick Muted.
well, I mean, should be able to click on the corner of the video. I think
No,
No, it says not allowed to change name of collaborators.
that's bizarre.
yeah, that's never happened before.
Yeah.
All
That
right,
is not good.
working on getting this thing shared out.
Hey, Tom.
Hello, everybody.
What?
I gotta move out that dryer this weekend. There's a lot of shit back there.
Okay.
So,
Add it to the honeydew list.
Um,
so there's been a lot of things going on this week. As of today, we now have a new pope.
That's correct.
Have a new what? Oh, yeah.
New
Yeah.
Pope.
I was like, wait, what? Wait.
Yeah,
Oh,
the, the
this is history, actually, because this is the first American. It
yeah,
would have been history a couple of different ways if it was the Asian,
Yeah.
the black one, or the American one.
But also, more importantly, not only is he the first American, he's from Chicago. So this also represents
That's
like
a
a
strike
huge.
against him. I don't know what to say.
What's that?
That's a strike against him.
Strike against him.
because now doing his sermons, he has to talk about Illinois.
Not on this important day. Hey, Braxton.
Watch him say it.
But no, it's seriously, it's really cool though that he's from our city. So Chicago, this is going to be playing a huge. Our city's going to have this is quite a historic moment for Chicago as well. So it's fantastic.
Well, this is two popes in a row that it's been a first time because the last one was a first time Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina,
Yeah, so a first there. Now we got a first American.
or better yet, we now have two popes from both the Americas because the last one was the first from South America, this one's the first from North America.
Hey, Braxton, how you doing?
So that's yeah. So very interesting.
It
And
is, and it would have been interesting, either way it went. It What got me is our last pope. They did this so quickly that that they knew it was coming and it was coming quickly.
oh
They
yeah.
had already
oh
done
yeah,
most of their,
I,
collaboration regarding who's going to be. But they did it quick, announced it quick. But that man, if he was that sick for that long, that man did everything up until the day he died. He even did part of an Easter speech.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And he passed what, that night? Was it that night?
It was either that night or the next morning.
Yeah, I think it was the next morning.
I mean, he did his duty up until he
Yes.
left.
And what's even more fascinating, again, this is why, again, I think this is also, the fact that he's from here. What's even more fascinating is that I did my research. He is also the first pope to have come from although he's the first one here in America, he is the first pope to have come from an English-speaking country since, ironically enough, Pope Adrian IV, who ruled the Catholic Church in the 1150s. So nearly 1,000 years ago was the last time we had an English-speaking pope.
And
Wow.
English back then was a lot different than it is
Oh,
now.
yeah. It was. It definitely was.
Yeah, because ye old English.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Sounded a lot more like, I don't know, maybe a little leprechaun?
Well,
If somebody were to speak true early English, would probably never be able to understand a single thing that guy was saying.
Well, that's like the
it too.
dialects between, different dialects in Mexico. There's
Yep.
Japan, as small as it really is compared to some,
Mhm.
there's so many different dialects there that they can't understand each other.
That's right. Not only that, but also considering, again, with this other pope from nearly 1,000. I mean, you also have to remember, too, it's not even just the old English, of course. I mean, we're also talking about a time centuries before the United States was ever created. We're talking about the turn of the millennium here.
Yeah. And this isn't, I mean, we're all very aware I'm not Catholic, but this is huge for people who aren't Catholic as well, because it's going to have an impact on everybody in the United States. It doesn't matter what religion you are, it will have an impact.
Right. Okay.
Hey,
So the last pope died April 21st, and it took them until May the 8th to announce a new pope.
Yeah.
I was actually doing a little bit of research. The shortest amount of time it took from death of a pope to announcing a new pope was 1 day,
Okay.
and the longest time was 3 years.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
my.
They could not vote it down to just one person. They were that divisive, and that one, the 3 year one, happened in 12 something.
Wow.
Wow.
So if something
Remember
like
that-
that were to happen today,
That's about,
imagine the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
which pope was that died in 05?
05,
05.
Yeah, 2005.
John Paul II.
Oh, yeah. John Paul.
He reigned quite a while, didn't he?
He was.
I don't know if that's the correct term, reigning, but
That's more
More
like
like ruled.
that's what it is. He was one of the longer. He was one of the longer ones. Let's see. List of popes.
that's something I found out today at work, because we're not allowed to have our phones at our desk, even though I work from home. Unless I'm on break, something like that, I'm not on my phone. Because we have sensitive information, things like that. You just respect that and just don't. But there's one of the girls got on the Teams chat and says, new pope, however she worded that, but it wasn't new pope was elected. She said it's coming or something. And I'm like, oh, wait, what? And of course I couldn't look at it. And then she posted, the new pope has been named, and he's the one from America. And of course we were all talking about, okay, what if it was the Asian one? What if it was the black one? It would be history regardless. Nobody ever talked about the one from America. And then they announced it. But what I want to look up, which I have not had a chance to, is what is the criteria to be eligible to become pope, to even be thought of voting in? What is the criteria?
I think one of them is you have to be a cardinal.
That's what I was going to say. A good majority of them are cardinals previously.
Because this guy right here that was elected today, he just became a cardinal 2 years ago.
Yes.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty quick
yeah.
step up.
I think he became one of the. I mean, at least in this day and age, I mean, one of our biggest cardinals we had here in Chicago. Although he not only just, interestingly enough, he not only just lived here in the United States. I mean, it turned out that he also for a number of years lived down in Peru. He has both American and Peru citizenship.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was only the last 2 years he became a cardinal, and he became basically one of our most notorious ones we've had in quite a long time.
Okay, John.
Yeah, and age. That's another thing. Like our
Right.
president, what age do you have to be?
In this case, he's 69 years old, and he's in fact he's about the same age as my mom. They were both born the same year, 1955.
Right, but what age do you have to be able to even be
Yeah,
selected?
not sure. That's a good question, actually.
Little side note: if none of y'all have seen the popular cult film Sinners,
I
oh
need to see
wow,
Sinners. Yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't seen that yet.
I've seen the trailers for it. It looks good.
It does.
when
Oh,
it comes to TV, I absolutely will.
I just saw today for the first time the trailer for The Long Walk.
Oh yeah, The Long Walk. That's right.
It's the first ever novel that Stephen King wrote.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's just now being made into.
Well, it's the first one he ever wrote, but in terms of release, I think it was like the sixth or seventh one released. But
Okay,
fans have been waiting for this one to be made into a movie for a very long time.
so it's
Real,
just coming out to the movie theaters now.
Just coming out. It'll be out in September.
I'll see it
real,
next year at some point.
real quick. Tom sent me this funny picture of the new Pope. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's a Photoshop of him wearing a Chicago White Sox hat because he's
You know
from
what?
Chicago.
You know what? I'm going to say this. I do not agree with the pictures that came out. I saw it this morning,
Oh,
maybe yesterday, of our president wearing the Pope
yes.
outfit.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's been out for about a week now.
Yeah, for
I
well
only
over
saw
a
it
week.
today. I do not
Oh,
agree
yeah,
with
it's
that
been going on for a few days.
at all. But here's what I am going to say. Everybody knows my stance on politics, but why? Why must we down the Pope?
Yeah.
He just got here. Why must we be mad at him because the president congratulated him? It is not his fault. He has spoke out against the president.
Yeah, yes. I was going to say this new pope he's had issues with the president before,
Mhm.
and he's spoken out against them. So that's something that
Yeah.
I know the president's not going to like. And of course, the rest of the Republican Party thought they were going to get someone far more left wing or something like that. But of course, as we all know, they don't have any say of who gets to be the next pope because they're not the Catholic Church.
I'm interested to know this Pope's stance on certain things simply because our past Pope was very tolerant of everyone. He was tolerant of transgender, of gay, of all of it. And
I think a lot of people considered him to be probably one of the more progressive popes we've
right,
ever had.
right. Which if a public figure is saying, hey, especially a religious figure is saying, it's not up to us to judge. Let's stop and let's, it's not up to us. We allow anybody into the church.
Yes.
Now, once they come into the church, and I don't know if they're hoping that maybe they'll change, whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact is that they're allowing them in, where many places they don't feel like they can.
Well, and it sounds kind of a little bit off topic, but it still revolves around that. It still revolves around what you're talking about. Is obviously. I mean, this is a reference to a famous Christmas movie Home Alone, the church scene, and they were talking, and he's talking with the neighbor that lives nearby, and he's like, "Well, you're not welcome at church." He's like, "Oh, you're always welcome at church." So, and that's pretty much true for the most part, regardless of
Yeah.
who you are in the end, is that the door is always open for you.
Kate, what's going on with Joe?
Yeah. So Joe, I
Uh,
just received a message. Give me a second here while I'm looking. He said that his wife got admitted to the hospital and it's serious, and Truck's still there with her. So that's all the information that. That's all.
Who's still there with her?
I guess the Truck. I mean, there's a little bit of a mistype, but Truck's still there with her. That's all I have. He didn't say anything else.
Well, we send our love to Joe.
Yes.
Yeah. And his wife, of course.
Kate was actually messaging me right before we got to the show, and I was going to ask you guys if it was because this was something Kate suggested, is because it sounded like Joe needed to talk with someone. So I was going to ask if it was possible to bring Joe on, just to chat with us, but it doesn't look like he's in the chat anymore.
Well, and that's something he may not want to do that publicly.
Right.
If he needs to talk to someone, any one of us, message us. We are here. It's, we're family.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have not been paying attention to messages. Have been practically working almost right up to.
I didn't get any messages regarding this, so I don't know.
It was primarily in the Fear Fans chat, so that's why you didn't get it. But
Makes sense.
Yeah, but the information right now is very scarce.
Makes sense, and he may not know much right now.
Yes.
Yeah, so not knowing that's the scary part, right?
I know.
That is the worst, guaranteed.
If we don't hear anything else, I mean, before the show's over tonight, I'm probably gonna give him a call just to check up to see how he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely, and let us know if he needs anything. We're here.
Yes. Real quick, I just decided to look it up. The question is about like how old you have to be in order to be a pope.
Uh-huh.
So here's what I got. Turns out there's no fixed minimum age to become pope, but there are other requirements. To be eligible, a person must be baptized, confirmed, male, Catholic, with no canonical impediments. While anyone baptized can be chosen, the pope is typically chosen from among the cardinals, like we just said, who are usually in their 60s or older. However, this is interesting. The youngest pope in history was reportedly Pope Benedict. What? I'm not always good with these Roman numeral numbers. What's the IX? Anyone know what that number is?
9.
Okay.
9.
So Pope Benedict IX, he was, get this, between 12 and 20 years old when he first became pope. But of course, it says currently cardinals over 80 are not allowed to vote in the conclave, which chooses the new pope. But yeah, oldest one. So there's been a kid that had centuries ago that was an actual pope.
I get that, just because there are kings that ruled that were, set on the throne at 12 years old. I'm sorry, that is not okay. That they cannot rule. It's the parent that rules, or it's their whoever is advising them that rules, and that is not okay. None of that is okay. No.
Well,
a man does not grow his damn brain until he's 22, 25.
Yeah, and he was
A
only
woman does not grow her brain until she at least 19, 20. And at that point, it's barely there. No. You have to have life experience.
He ruled between October of 1032 and July of 1048. So he ruled for like almost 20 years. And he died relatively young too. When he died in either December of 1055 or January of 1056. He was, again, at that time, I mean, obviously back then it would have been old, but obviously by modern looks, he was still pretty young.
Yeah.
For at that time when he passed away, he was only 43 years old,
Wow.
and he was
Hey.
also the only person to have been pope more than once.
Okay, that makes sense, Braxton. Hey, mute yourself. Listen to Tim, Tom. Oh my God, I've got Tim on the brain because I just watched his show. Listen to Tom. He may have a premonition there. Go ahead and mute yourself and call him. Just make sure he's okay.
Oh, I consider it done.
I hate when one of our people have issues. That's the scariest part.
Yeah, and especially if you can't actually be there.
I know. And
remember when you and I were at the cemetery with Zach?
Yep.
And we got the call about Tim going into the hospital.
Yep. Well, same with you. When you went in, it's like, we got to do something from here, but what?
At that point, there was nothing that could be done. Not at that point.
No, but you still want to be there to see what's going on.
So this Benedict IX, this was 1,000 years ago. So they wouldn't have any idea about, the growth of the brain at that time. Why they even chose a kid. So apparently he was Pope 3 times. So that's unheard of.
Well, okay, I can understand that, Braxton, because if they're a fierce warrior, somebody is looking for a safe place and somebody to guard them. Okay, I can get that. That I understand. Who was the... Okay, King Tut. How old was he? I want to say he was very young.
I want to say he was 21 when he died.
Right. And he was, of course, this was 1332 BC. Their life expectancy was not great.
It wasn't, and
he was 9. He was
what
9.
Evidence was shown is that he had mental abilities too.
Oh, of course he did, because back then, if you were of any royal blood, they wanted to keep it royal blood, and the way they kept it royal blood was incest. And so I'm sure.
And that was, yeah, they didn't know then that definitely was not the answer.
Well, and it goes back to when you live on a farm, you watch the animals. Back then, that's all they had was animals around them to watch. Okay. When you watch the animals, they don't breed with their brothers and sisters.
I thought they did.
Some will, but they come out probably deceased. If not, very awful side effects. We really are animals. Yeah, we're human, but we're animals.
Yes, we are.
Our instincts are animals. So the shoes found in his tomb were made. I never got that far on that. I know Zach knows all about that because we listen to those books going to sleep. I go to sleep. I'm not listening. Both his parents were cousins.
I got this list of popes here. So it goes from John 29 to Benedict 9, then to Sylvester 3, back to Benedict 9, then Gregory the 6th, Clement the Seventh, and back to Benedict IX. So that is 3 non-consecutive terms as Pope. I've never heard of that before.
No,
Let alone 2 of them.
they found out his age from examining his wisdom. Yeah, I can imagine. Uh,
That'd be the only way you could do it.
well, and they've got so many new machines and things to carbon date, and it's amazing the things we found now. Now,
Yeah,
my question is,
we're still talking 2,500 years ago.
mhm.
No, 3,000 years ago.
Well, my question is, somebody brought up somewhere, I don't know, I read it, but it makes you think. They found underground towns, cities, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
civilizations. And those civilizations, how were they extinguished? What they're finding is those civilizations were far more advanced than we are now. So, did they advance so far that they did themselves in? Are
No,
we
nothing
headed
major
on that
wouldn't surprise me the least.
And underground makes sense because it was so long ago. If you drop something on the ground, a rock, it doesn't matter. You drop it on the ground.
Hey, Scott.
You drop it on the ground. It gets buried from the dirt with the wind, whatever else. It gets buried.
And another thing to consider with a whole bunch of towns being found underground, it won't be true for all of them, but it is definitely true for those that are nearby what they did not know were active volcanoes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once it spews, it buries many towns.
And that's how much of us, we're first, but how much of us is going to be gone when the one in Yosemite Park, is it Yosemite?
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
When it goes, we're gone. There's nothing we can do. It's gone. We're done. Howie, of course.
Maybe what do you even need to ask? Just type.
Get to be on his show Sunday.
I got a list of longest popes. So
Okay.
John Paul II is third high. 26 years, 5 months, 17 days. The longest pope is Saint Peter. Evidently, they called him Saint back then. 34 years, and this is back in. They got 2 different time frames, either 30 to 64 AD or 33 to 67 AD.
Okay. Okay. Howie, that does make sense. My thing is, they had more knowledge back then of the meteors, the any celestial stuff going on. They had knowledge of it. They knew, we renamed it, of course, but the stars, the galaxies, they had all that. And we're just relearning it, like we just started over as animals.
And today, if we were to find out about a meteor strike today, honestly, I don't know how many people would actually be smart enough to go hide underground.
Well, but look at all the people now that was actually something we do at work. On the spirit team, we look up days. Like if you look up national days, there's stupid days, chocolate day, whatever. But one this month was Underground Day. And if you look it up, it talks about underground bunkers. And, used to maybe 5-10 years ago, when people would talk about underground bunkers or, their safe zone, whatever it was, we'd make fun of them. I didn't, but people would make fun of them because they were conspiracy theorists. They were whatever. But here's what nobody is paying attention to. Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico is an underground bunker for the government. It is set out for the government. If something happens, government officials go there.
Wow. Okay,
There's
here's
places under Walmart. Every Walmart has a tunnel under it.
that. We were talking about that last week, I think. Okay, here's another interesting fact. So the Saint Peter, he was the first pope, the very first one. They didn't start referring to them as popes until Boniface II, and he was the 55th pope. So
Okay.
everybody before him were Saint whatever. So
I don't know. I
starting,
disagree with that because saint, okay,
well, their
Jesus,
definition of saint then would be
right,
vastly different from how we think of them now. But
right,
we
right.
started using
And
the term pope in 530 with Boniface II.
yeah, and
Guys,
energy. That's what we're going back to is following our energy, paying attention to energy. I guess we call it people waking up, whole different than what people are calling the woke. That's a whole different thing that we're not getting into. But
Oh, wait a
you
minute.
know, waking up as far as what's around us, how our energy can affect other things.
I may actually be incorrect on that one here because I'm going through the list. There are several popes later on, and even up to John Paul II. They're being referred to as saint. So they're probably given sainthood, and that's why they are listed as Saint Peter, Saint Linus, and Saint this and Saint that.
I know they have to perform miracles of some sort to be a saint.
um, real quick,
Oh, Nick's off. Okay.
yeah, yeah, I've been off for a few. I was actually off for about 2 minutes or so. So sorry to change the subject for a minute. Yeah, so I just got off the phone with Joe. Um, he's really scared right now. I can tell you that right now. It's not looking good. Um, his wife was admitted to the hospital earlier this evening, and he just feels so helpless. He's never felt this way before. So I suggested, and Jeremy, I think you probably got the notification. I sent a voicemail. I think it's best that after, when we're done with the show, we all got to talk to him because he's never felt this alone. So I
Right.
think all of us need to take after we're done with the show. I think we need to take a few minutes of our time to talk with him.
How about we make a group chat when we're done and put
Yeah,
him in it? And that way, whoever is available is there because being alone is not okay. This
yeah,
this is not okay. And a man feels like they can take care of everything, and especially him. He's a man's man, and things like this he cannot fix. So
exactly.
he's going to have to turn it over to the doctors and let them help. But he does need us if he will let us.
Yeah, he as far as from what he said to me, I mean, I think he definitely could appreciate and use all the support that he can get, from all of us. So that's the announce. When I'm probably, I mean, I was gonna probably make I was probably going to create the actual video call. Well, excuse me, not necessary video call, but just a phone call itself on the video chat. Oh, I keep saying video chat. Damn it!
So
On the
who knows him better here? Who knows him real well?
It would be Nick.
yeah.
Okay.
Aside from me, of course, Don, Kate knows him pretty well too.
Okay. Would he feel more comfortable in a chat setting or an actual phone call setting? He may not be able to answer questions or be able to talk openly in a phone call if he's next to her. He may not want to say what he's feeling and let her hear it.
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, it sounded like he was open to like just like a phone call because this was just what I was thinking was when you were actually talking to someone.
Is he even with her right now?
No, I think he's to start off.
Okay, Kate's
well,
going to call. Okay, Kate,
condition.
let us know, kind of get a feel for what he might be comfortable with.
Yeah,
He
Kate.
can't
do
message
that.
because of his condition. Okay,
Yeah,
just let us know how we can help. I'm going to put it that way. Let us know what we can do.
that was the other thing he mentioned too was because he couldn't message. So it sounded like a call was probably the best thing for him. And plus, when you're actually talking to someone on the phone, you're actually at least talking to someone. When you're chatting, it's just typing a few words. You're not actually really experiencing that person's feelings then.
Yeah, well, it depends on the situation that you're in. If he was in there with her, I wouldn't want, if it was Zach, I wouldn't want him to hear my concerns.
Well, so that's what I'm asking. Is he actually with her in the same room, or is he having to wait in the lobby area, or waiting room, or somewhere
I
away from her?
It sounded like to me that he was waiting in the lobby area because he said he was.
I
by
don't like
himself.
that. I don't like that.
No, I'm definitely getting very concerned for him and his wife.
Well, we're going to be there regardless of what
Yes.
happens. We will send all the good vibes, all the good energy we can, but we'll be there.
Yes.
That's all we can do.
They
Absolutely.
just took a trip together.
Do what?
Yeah, they just actually just came out to Chicago last weekend for a paranormal event. Now I was supposed to be there too myself, but unfortunately I had to cancel my appearance. It was just like a paranormal meetup, not necessarily a con, but I had to cancel my appearance being there because it was one of my other friends' birthdays, and I already promised her weeks in advance that I was going to be celebrating. And plus, she was there celebrating my birthday earlier this year, so I had to return the favor. So, unfortunately,
Priorities.
what's that?
You did
Priorities.
it. Nick,
Yeah.
Nick to you again.
Yeah. So,
Put something on that wall.
what's on the wall?
I'm telling you, put something on the wall. You did it to me again.
What did I do?
I went to go take this mark off of my screen and realize that it's a hole in your wall.
Oh, it's a nail.
Oh, this?
Yes.
Yep.
No, actually, that's not a nail at all. That's they're like stickers. That's how I put the decorations up.
Put something on it.
Remove it.
If I do, then it's probably going to leave a mark on the wall.
Put something on
There
it.
is a mark on the wall.
Yeah. Put something
I'll
on
have to find
it.
something.
Not to scratch at my screen.
I'll have to find something. But
That-
I mean, hey, it's the
that
first time you
reminds
guys
me.
are also seeing the basement normal in a long. No flashing lights this time.
Yes, and I'm very thankful for that.
Hey, you guys don't have to worry about that again now until 4th of July.
What was it? Earlier this week. Anyway, my bird is in my office with me. Okay. I have 2 computer screens I work on. My bird decides it's going to face away from me and shit on my screen. Okay. So If you know birds, they can't control their bowels. They don't give two shits about where they're shitting. So
No.
it shits right down my screen. I grab something, I wipe it. I go get alcohol. I clean it the rest of the way off. I'm looking at my screen and I see a dot. So I'm wiping. It doesn't come off. Okay. I'll wait till I turn it off. See what's going on. It was just a pixel that went out. Whatever. But
Oh, I've got a few of those on this screen here.
it's like, and that's what I think of when I see his screen with that black on there. It's like, there's a piece of shit on there here.
Mhm.
There's bird shit on your screen, Nick.
No, it's bird shit on his wall. It's on our screen. So that's
That
why
damn bird
puts
has become
on the wall.
that damn bird has become part of like everything. I've got, when people call in, do you have a bird there? Nope. Yeah, it's the office bird. And then well, I don't want the running beak because that means they're on their way out. But no, this bird, I'll get on a Teams meeting and it's on my head or it's on my shoulder. It has to make an appearance or it's just not a meeting. But it's funny, I'm the only one it will go to because I spend 10 freaking hours a day with the damn thing. Hey, did anybody catch Scott's show?
I did towards the end. Like I said, I was working, and it was about, I don't know, 15 minutes before, so I tuned into his show.
It was really good.
Yeah, I would have joined myself, but we had the baby over, so I didn't get to have enough time to really watch, unfortunately.
We were dead for a minute at work, and it was really good. They were talking about reincarnation and the different opinions.
What the?
Sorry, that's my side.
Okay, find out what's going on.
No, that's on me too.
Oh, it is. She must have included you on her call.
Oh shit.
She,
She put together a group call.
yeah, she did.
Okay.
So that's what you were hearing.
Yes.
Nick, mute yourself, answer the call, see what's going on. Real life happens before shows happen.
Yeah. I feel bad that I had to decline that.
Well, he'll tell him. He'll tell him that we're on the show. What?
Huh?
Hold on. He'll let us know.
Oh, he was saying 1 minute. Okay, so we got myself, Kate, Nick, Robert, Joe, and Tom.
Just make sure he's got someone to talk to.
I'm the only one in that group that didn't answer the call.
Well,
Now that makes me so bad.
this is kind of the only way we're going to know what's going on.
Yeah, it is.
He said he'll be back.
Okay.
This, when one of ours has issues like this, it's not good.
So it makes me wonder. They had just taken that trip to Chicago a couple of days ago. Um, so did something happen on that trip? But
Yeah.
but we don't even know if this is something that did she start feeling bad or did something else happen?
Right, right. It sounds to me like something else happened for him not to be in there. There's there's something going on.
Yeah.
Why are you barking? So our fence still not fixed. And today there's trash in our yard from that dumpster. I'm not thrilled. But I'm not the one dealing with it because if I was the one dealing with it, may not be so nice.
Yeah, probably not.
Oh, the funniest thing today, I look out my window at the office and mom and dad come home with the dog. They've been groomed. Pixie looks like she's about this big now. And the back hatch on their car is open. I'm looking at this going, is anybody coming back out? Like, what's going on? No, nobody's coming back out. So I come downstairs. I'm like, so is your car now open for homeless shelter? I'm like, no, why? Mom says, no, why? I said, it's open. Dad says, oh, yeah, I saw that a minute ago when I was talking to somebody up there, but I forgot about it. Let's shut the car. Like, holy shit. Oh,
Well, you get something?
no, not from that. Um, they're putting out more of the Pope pictures.
Oh,
And, people have opinions that which everybody should have an opinion. That's fine. But let's be nice.
there are some people out there that are incapable of being nice.
I'm starting to believe that. I really am.
No, I've known that for years. There are
I still
some
hold that
people.
thought that everybody is capable of being nice if they choose to be.
Yeah, but they don't.
Well,
Because it takes more effort to be nice than it is to be a dick.
it it does. It does. And it's hard, but you know, sometimes it's great to have an opinion. Everybody should. So that way, and everybody should voice their opinion. But they don't need to change everybody else's. Just listen to everybody's opinion, take it. Maybe you change your mind, maybe you don't, but listen to it at least.
Yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way of giving your opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Stating this is the only opinion is incorrect.
Right. Um, like for example, let's say movies. What is the greatest movie of all time, and why is it Citizen Kane? Comments like I'm thinking. Now, granted, it has been listed, voted numerous times on several polls. That movie has been voted to be the greatest movie of all time.
Which means many people like it. That's great.
Yeah.
And and some people may not for one certain reason. Who knows what it is?
Well, I
Like
want find that movie and watch it myself because I'm very curious. What is it really about?
Yeah. And
Why?
then you're built up to think it's the best thing in the world, and you're going, I've seen better.
Well, it is a 1940 movie.
Okay.
Now, I tend to look down on movies back then. Citizen Kane, because I don't particularly care too much for those kinds of movies because, for one, a lot of them are too unrealistic in terms of how people are acting.
Yeah.
Uh, Two, it's sort of like a minimal approach to it, what you see, minimal visual.
Yeah.
Um, like today's, it's what you see is what's really out there. In those movies, what you see, not so much.
Well, yeah, but back then, that's when they made laws that if you look up your own state laws are ridiculous. Like if you spit on the sidewalk, you're arrested, or it is illegal to screw a goat in your bathtub. Okay,
I
what
Yeah,
happened?
I remember seeing something like that, and I'm thinking, there's no way that could actually be a law.
Oh, it's a law.
Yeah.
But what happened to make that a law? How many people did something that dumb to make this an actual law?
Well, look at the warning labels on certain items out there.
Natural selection should take over, but that's a whole different story. We're watching Hell on Wheels right now, and that movie, it's slow going, but it really makes you think about what happened back then when the railroad was actually built, when it hit from north to south and connected. And one of the strangest things I'm seeing on there is the women. There was women who were married and with their husbands that were out there. There were whores, and the whores were the low lives of anything. But all the men went there after their workday and paid them. But if they passed away, anything happened to them, they didn't even get a proper burial. They were the lowlifes. Something isn't making sense.
No, but think about the time period it was.
Yeah, yeah, but
It was
it
also
really
during,
makes you.
it was also during that time period that you can just shoot somebody, kill them,
It,
and nothing would happen to you.
yeah. And at the end of this series is when things started did happen. They started paying attention, and if somebody was killed, like in one part of the movie, they killed a whore. Well, of course, the law's not going to take care of that. There's no laws in this little town. So it's not a town, it was a bunch of workers. And, it's one of those things that you go, okay, she was killed. So there was internal justice done, but,
Mhm.
it's nothing like now. And then when civilization came in, that's a whole different story because then you started picking and choosing who you decide you're going to do something with.
True, but even not even 100 years ago, they were still lynching people.
Yeah.
Um, it it's amazing how far we've come from 100 years ago, but at the same time, it's amazing how too far we've come.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a line, and we have crossed it. We have danced over it, and we have jumped over it.
We've stomped on it.
Yeah. But, is this what happened to the last civilization? I don't know.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like Scott's show. It's one of those things of there's so many opinions, but what we all agree on is anybody that's ever talked to a spirit, seen a spirit, communicated at all, you cannot get the answer of what happens when you die. That is not an answer any of us have gotten.
John Griffin actually tried to get an answer,
Yeah.
and the answer that he got is that they are not allowed to tell us.
Right. And I believe that because nobody has gotten that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I 100% believe that. And where Scott was going with that show was they were talking about the biblical part of that show, of the what reincarnation. The Bible does not talk about reincarnation, but it does talk about the separation of spirit, body, soul, body, and there was another one, but um, it leads you to
They
believe.
also mentioned that Bible was written by man.
Yeah, I made that comment. Yes, and
Uh,
men make mistakes, and our messages from spirit or afterlife or the creator or whatever can be construed differently.
yeah, I actually made the comment that if I am reincarnated, I like to be on a different planet in a different galaxy.
If that exists, yes.
I I don't see why it wouldn't exist because there is no possible way that we are the only planet to
No.
have intelligent life.
And how intelligent are we really?
Well, when you look at the actions of certain people, and I'm not even talking about some of our leaders.
No, no, just people in general.
Yeah, when you look at the action of people, not that intelligent. For example, and I'm not going to be saying this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, but there was a video that was making the rounds yesterday or 2 days ago, but it was Secretary of Defense. I think it was Secretary of Defense. Let me. Okay, yeah, Pete Hegseth. There was a video of him saying that we are no longer going to be using pronouns. We are no longer going to be this climate thing. He was taking the really out there stuff,
Hmm.
and he was including pronouns and that stuff. And he says that shit ends or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, I completely get his view, because when you look at certain things, they have really gone overboard.
Yeah, yeah. And people are creating things. Now, I don't get into the pronouns or whatever. Here's where my issue lies. Here in Greeley, and I don't know how many other places, California, I'm sure, because we're just right there. Um, the schools have litter boxes for kids that identify as cats to use.
Yeah, I've got a problem with that too.
My problem with that is, I'm going to tell you what, my kids come to me and say, I identify as a cat. Great. I'm going to open that damn can of cat food. I'm going to set it on the porch. And I'm going to say, you eat that shit. Here's your water. Here's your food. You sleep outside. Cats stay outside during the night. Have fun. No. Cats don't need clothes.
Yeah, that's I just don't get it.
I I don't get that either, except for we have allowed people to identify as anything other than human.
There was one person out there, guy or a girl, that was doing all of these modifications to make look like a cat.
Right.
Doing the extra thick eyebrows.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's all fine and great, but if you want to identify as that, you go live like that.
yeah. Now, if you want to identify yourself as a non-binary, I don't give a shit.
Right.
Go ahead.
I understand that. That's
Yeah.
fine. But an animal,
Yeah, that's a problem.
I there has to be a line, and at what point do we draw that line, and where do we allow people to cross it and not cross it? If we allow them to cross it, anything is possible.
Well, the problem is a lot of people out there, too many people, are afraid they're going to be offending somebody.
Uh, yeah,
Now, I get it. I don't care to offend somebody one way or the other,
no,
but there has to be a time where you got to be firm with people,
yeah,
and if it
yeah.
hurts their feelings, well,
Welcome to the world, because your feelings are going to get hurt.
yeah, yeah.
Nick, what'd you find out? You're muted.
I I don't know how I'm not used to that yet. So there was
How
there
long
was
have you
a
been doing
total of 5 of us on this call. It was me, Kate, Robert, Tom, and of course Joe himself.
Yeah, I
And
was
he
the only
basically,
one that was not in that thing.
yeah. Well, it sounds like we're going to be making eventually another phone call sometime in the next. I don't know exactly. It could happen next few minutes. It could happen next hour. I have no clue. But he says that we suggested to him at one point about, because she's at the local hospital right now, and we thought, is there a way to maybe have her transferred to like more closer to downtown Madison, but it sounds like I guess it was the insurance or something that couldn't cover that or something like that. And essentially, this was also the hospital. I think he did say that did save his life 30 years ago when he had cancer. So right now, there's just I think one of his kids has just came in, so he's with one of his sons right now. So he's not by himself. That's a good start. But
why does insurance always have to be an issue?
I don't know why, but it's like, for God's sakes, this is like either like, this is a hospital. I've always learned that you worry about the medical expenses later. Right now, it's trying to have someone get better or save their life, essentially.
So, do we know how critical this is? What's going on?
It sounded like I don't want to alarm anyone necessarily because obviously I know it can be deadly, but there's other times where it's not deadly. Is that it was basically some kind of infection, I guess she had, that entered her bloodstream.
Okay.
And if I'm thinking correctly, because when I joined in the call, the call was already in progress, so I didn't hear anything before that. But it sounded like her blood was starting to become. Again, I don't want to say it incorrectly. I'm just telling you guys what I heard. It sounded like she was starting to become septic.
Okay.
That's which I know if you become septic early, I did hear that it can be very treatable,
Right.
which
Right.
thank goodness she was sent to the hospital as soon as she did, because it could have been way worse had she waited. So
When did you first start feeling symptoms?
it happened earlier today. She was
Okay,
on her
good.
way to work.
Good.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, so this just happened within literally the last few hours. So again, thank goodness that she got sent to the hospital as quickly as she could to be treated. And
I know you guys probably didn't talk about this. I would be wondering about mosquitoes in the area, if they've been out and about yet,
that I'm not sure. We didn't ask him that question.
because that would be the thing that I'd be wondering about, mosquitoes, or did she get scratched by something?
It sounded like, again,
sepsis can come on by even having like a bladder infection
Yeah.
or anything. It doesn't have to be external.
No, it's not always it can always be internal. Every now and then
A
you have an
tooth,
internal case.
anything.
Yeah. But
Well, that's
but in
another
this case,
thing I was wondering about, because they had just come to Chicago.
yeah,
Did she eat something that might have been bad? Or
it sounded like to me, because again that this happened earlier today, it sounded like it was revolving around like some type of injury or something. I don't think I don't think it was anything that she ate. I don't think so.
an injury? Okay,
Again, I could be wrong, because again, I only was there for part of it, but it sounded like it occurred. I don't know if it was. I feel bad for like already forgetting so many details, but it sounded
Well,
like
when you're flooded with a ton of details in a very short amount of time, just to remember half of it would be short of a miracle.
yeah.
well,
And
and we don't have a definitive answer yet. So
exactly. And also, in addition, because I did say, I did mention both of you guys that when there's another call that you guys, I also reached out to a few of the others, obviously mainly from the Fear Fans chat, but in this case, I messaged them separately. Chris was going to join, but unfortunately he was unavailable because he was at a friend's house, but he did say that he might be able to join the next one. I tried also reaching out to Don and Nikki, which I didn't hear back, and Jill too. I didn't hear back from them. And also even Donald is probably going to join the call later tonight too.
Well,
So
one thing you need to keep in mind is that yes, it's great to have people to fall onto, but there's also such a thing as having too many people.
well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't necessarily trying to create like a huge group out of this. I was just essentially just trying to give as much support as he possibly can at a time like this, because like I said, the tone of his voice, I've never heard him scared before. I never have.
Having support is a great thing, but having too many people trying to talk to you all at once can also be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Especially if your brain is still trying to process the shit that you're going through right now.
Right.
well, he just needs to know we're here.
Yeah.
Of course, we're across the globe. So some of us may be available at certain times where others are not.
Well, in the case because like I said, in this aforementioned phone call I was just on, Robert all the way from Australia was part of this, and just
Right.
over there, they're
It's
just
9 a.m. for him.
What's that?
It's 9 a.m. for him.
That's what I was about. Yeah, just like over there, they're just beginning their day, so they got
Right. Which
got
he'll
all
be
the time.
available when we're asleep.
Yeah. Yep.
Same with Nikki.
Yes, same with
It's going to be
Nikki.
a little different there. So there'll always be someone.
Yes.
That's
I
my
will
main concern
expand.
is someone.
Definitely, definitely.
That's why we expand as far as we do.
Yeah, this isn't just about shows and things that we can do. This is for things like this.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like I've always said, it eventually becomes brotherhood, sisterhood, and family.
It is. And it doesn't matter how you get there, that's what it's about.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I agree.
I mean, you have those, we're not going to mention names, but we have networks that all they're about is, are you're not on? Okay, you're gone.
Make me money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Money my ass off of Facebook. Seriously.
Yeah, but I don't know if you were in that particular meeting, but I actually heard those words spoke.
Oh,
Really?
I have heard
Wow.
it live. Yeah. I have heard them live.
Hi, Denise.
Denise, hey. Haven't seen them in the chats on any of our shows for a while. It's good to see you.
She was just with us last week.
Oh, I wasn't on last week.
Uh-huh.
Remember, because I had the allergies.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh,
Yeah,
so you didn't see the picture.
what picture?
Uh, she,
Oh,
she was showing us a picture of her and Ernie's dog, Red.
oh, okay.
And I don't even remember how we got into the topic, but she had mentioned um, painting eyebrows on Red.
Oh, really?
And she sent me a picture. It's like, can I show this? She said,
Oh
so I showed her.
man, if I knew that you guys were going to show a picture, I would have. You guys should have told me. You got to check this out.
I
Oh,
thought
yeah, you got to be here for that.
I know, but
I
my
thought
allergies
you've been
are out
watching at least.
of
But yeah, that's right. Oh boy, how bad is my memory? I completely forgot you weren't on the show last
Yeah,
week.
I was that. So okay, so I'm going to refrain that. It's been a long time since I've seen her or Ernie on the shows on the chat because again, I wasn't here last week.
A whole 2 weeks. Oh, Denise, what'd you send me this time?
Uh-oh. I heard that too.
Oh,
I'm thinking to myself, that's got to be from her.
yeah, that's hard for one person to try to keep everyone updated. It is.
Red has a slumber party tomorrow night. Ooh, that should sound fun.
Yeah, and Denise, I'm showing this picture. I'm not even going to ask.
No, this
I
I gotta see. What do we got? What do we got?
oh, wait, hang on.
And also, right after that, I'd like to respond to what Tom said.
I just did.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry. I was so distracted with Denise, I wasn't even paying attention to what you were saying.
Oh wow, open hearts. Damn,
Yeah,
everyone's going to the hospital.
yeah, really.
Well,
Yeah, what I said was it's really hard for one person to give information to everyone when they're trying to do their own thing.
Oh, I love it. That's so cute.
little rubber duckies on his on his onesie,
Oh my gosh.
and a well placed star there, Denise.
Yeah.
And look back here. Here's all of his toys. He's actually got like two baskets of toys, if I recall right.
Does he put them back on his own?
I doubt that.
Well, here's another question too. Well, actually, no. To start off with this, Adrian, how come you never have your dogs dressed up that way?
Hell no.
She wouldn't be Ernie says he's got no. They both said he's got 5.
He's got 5 boxes of toys. Oh my god!
If I were to dress any of my dogs, they would eat it off. Yeah, these dogs, oh my gosh. We have started putting, because it's raining now, we have started putting sheets on our couches and chairs.
Yeah,
Assholes are eating the sheets, biting holes in them and eating them.
Jeez.
Yeah. And if I had any less heart than I did, there's one dog that would go back to the pound where I found him.
Ghost.
Oh, Ernie's here too.
Mm-hmm.
Brett is not spoiled at all.
No, not at all.
That's not the biggest load of bullshit I've ever.
I was going to say, no, of course not. He looks completely innocent.
But well, here's the thing: Red actually is innocent.
I wish I could have said that myself when I had the opportunity to go down, which I still regret not going down with you, Jeremy, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, and you even teased us you were going with.
I really thought I was going to go, and now I absolutely regret it. I would have honestly traded being down there with you guys than what I was, because I had a shitty weekend at work that weekend.
Work sucks, don't it?
It does.
Responsibilities suck.
We had a great time. They took me to this really cool pizza place the first night that I was there, and then either the next night or the night after that, they took me to. Well, there was a whole bunch of us that met up at Red Yeti. That place is cool as hell. But yeah, as far as Red goes, yeah, he's spoiled, but he's also one of those dogs that deserves the spoilage he gets.
I know it's never too late, Denise. I really want to head down there. Trust me, I really do. Just responding what Denise said.
I really want to try to get down there this year if I can. I don't
That
know.
area is gorgeous.
It is. It is. When out there in Fort Duffield, that was just that alone is worth it.
Yeah. I mean, any historical site is absolutely worth going to, but I lived in Kentucky there, and that area is just gorgeous.
I know that they have that pencil drawing of the fort
Yeah.
of what it would have looked like across the river. I think they showed it to me, but it would be so cool because I know back then they actually had photography. It
Yeah.
would be so cool if they could find some actual photographs from
Mhm.
that time.
There's got to be at least a few pictures out there. I mean, hopefully if there were, hopefully they have survived long enough so we could see them. But there's got to be at least a few out there, one way or another.
I haven't, Denise.
Haunted
Where is that at?
episode.
I saw it was pretty good because when they were out there at the same time we had that eclipse.
Mm.
And they were integrating the eclipse into their investigation. Now, I was trying to do the same thing out here, trying to see if like any of my EMFs would go off during the eclipse, but the problem was I was just outside of
Thank you.
that totality that they had.
Okay.
If I had driven maybe 1 hour south of me, I would have been in it.
Okay.
It did get dark, but it was more like a 7 p.m. sun is already down,
Yeah.
but not dark.
Yeah. It's so strange. I have all my kids' locations saved on my weather channel, because obviously Oklahoma and Kansas get tornadoes and
Yep.
all kinds of crazy stuff. Um, so I have it saved on there, and it's strange to see it has, listed sun up, sunset, and it is so different. Like their worlds are completely different.
Okay, Ernie just said no known photos of the fort.
Do you want Gravy?
Are known to exist.
I know.
That's a shame.
Well, it's interesting. I'm surprised because I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but again, interestingly, here in Chicago, in one of the park areas, we got Lincoln Park, which, has always been a very popular spot for both residents and tourists alike. Well, long before Lincoln Park, was ever created, there actually used to be a Civil War fort right in that area, which was this case, it was called Fort Douglas. And it's interesting how Ernie said there's no known photos of Fort Duffield like during the early days. Well, Fort Douglas, in the other case, there are a few photographs of it. And it was a relatively large fort. And it was primarily used, obviously, as a prisoner of war camp, for Confederates that were captured. Many of these soldiers were known to have had died within the fort. And get this, like typical of a lot of these forts, many of those that died were later buried in a mass grave. To this day, they're still uncovering bones. And we're talking about here. It's just like Adrian, in your case, it's just like Cheeseman Park in a way,
Yeah.
where you have families going around, kids playing on playgrounds and stuff, not realizing the dark history of that area. And because of this mass grave, that's actually, according to my dad, and I definitely agree with him 100% on this, that, to me, in my personal opinion, is probably one of Chicago's darkest secrets, because even a lot of residents here don't even know about this.
I cannot wait to watch this. I just got that link.
Yeah.
Um,
But I will say, and one more interesting piece of history about this fort too was that even though this was, in this case, it's Illinois is a northern state, there were at least 6 African Americans that were also imprisoned in Fort Douglas. But what's interesting is that they all suffered different fates. 3 of them were eventually released. 2 of them, nobody knows what happened to them, and at least 1 died. So it has quite the history in that area. But that's
well,
I don't know how to really describe it, honestly.
we're talking about things that happen, dark history, things like that. Yes, the forts, all that energy is there because they knew they were going to go into war. They knew, different things. They knew they were there, kind of a sitting duck for attack, different things. So all those feelings are there still. But anywhere you go, really, anywhere you go there's things like there's a guy that came through here. I don't know where he came from, who he is. This was farmland. And he was looking for his wife and baby. I mean, I'm sure, close to here and close to anywhere in the United States, there was Indians that were being slaughtered or they slaughtered, whatever the case might be. Our land there's lots of history everywhere you go. It's just, do you really know where it was?
Well, and that's basically what I said. Like I said, in this case with this former Fort Douglas we have, is that, Chicago's existed for, now we're in 2025. Our city has been around now for almost 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time when this all occurred, obviously during the Civil War, the 1860s, at that time, Chicago was not even 30 years old in that time period.
Right.
So the fact that all occurred, almost 30 years after the city was founded, and here we are now almost 200 years later, after the city's founding, and also 160 years after
Wow.
all this occurred, that not many, even still today, not many people know about this. I do know there have been a few books written about it. In fact, we did, long story short, we did an investigation at that park over a decade ago, back in 2013. And we were fortunate enough to have an actual author who wrote a book about Fort Douglas. I think we have the book, as a matter of fact, that talked about everything that occurred within not Fort Duffy, Fort Douglas. Yeah, I know. I get them confused because they both start with D. So, but it describes like everything that was going on with Fort Douglas during its existence before it was eventually demolished, and
Mhm.
it's real. It's just like what you said. There's history all around, and it's just really surprising that, especially by now, like again, that not many people know about this, even those who live here.
Well, but like she said, that used to be where she's living, used to be a hospital. Can you
Yeah.
imagine the energy that's still within
Oh my God.
those
Yeah.
walls? Not just energy, but who is still within those walls.
Yep.
A lot
We
of
know hospitals. Yeah, I mean, we know hospitals are crazy. They're crazy haunted. It's the feelings of scared, of ready to go, of pain. All of that is there. The unclaimed bodies, Denise, I think they just became your claim there. They're your family now.
You know, I know this is going to sound really strange, but this is something Hey, Nikki, um, I know this is going to sound really strange, and again, this was over a decade ago. It's going to sound partially off topic, but it's going to go right back to the subject matter. My mom suggested to me like several years ago, like not the job I have now. This was before I got the job at the grocery store, but Ernie said Jeremy has felt it. Yeah. So
they
my mom suggested about one point like a
they
job.
had to sit there at that house. Well, not just the house, but the property.
Mhm.
Remember, Ernie and I were chasing something up the street from that house, from the neighbor's house, because we were sitting outside and I saw something next door. So Ernie and I went to go track it. We went out to the middle of the street, walked down the street, and couldn't find it.
But anyways, my mom suggested to me one time that like a job suggestion. I mean, she thought it would be up my alley and there would definitely be a lot of paranormal activity occur, but the actual job itself, I don't know if I'd be able to handle. She actually suggested one time about me trying to work at a morgue, I would say, at a mortuary. But I mean, even if, I mean, yes, just the amount of activity at a location like that would be absolutely insane. But I don't think I'd be able to handle a job like that, handling dead bodies like that. And plus, you're handling bodies of different, people who died different deaths. You're dealing with murder victims and stuff. You would be seeing things that you would never ever forget. You'd be, those guys that work at these jobs, they're the only ones that see such graphic detail aside from police officers and detectives. And
Mhm.
that's just, yeah, there may be all the activity, but I just don't think I could do a job like that, especially when you're handling like bodies of kids who had died.
You
Yeah.
got to think about the kind of mindset that you're in, because I can't imagine anybody growing up saying, "I want to be a mortician."
I know. I mean, yes, it's true. I know they're known to make a lot of good money at those places, depending on which one. But if if I was to have that opportunity to, even with a good pay or whatever the case is, I don't think it would be worth it because I just don't think I could handle seeing that kind of stuff. In fact, I was just reading this last night. Um, Funny enough, this was something Lois has covered on one of her shows. Long story short, I was doing research about a notorious serial killer from California, Richard Chase, the vampire of Sacramento. You know, he killed, brutally murdered, and cannibalized 6 people back in the late 1970s. And one of the first victims, I'm not going to go into full detail, one of the first victims was just mutilated beyond recognition. I mean, it was a horrible, horrible death. And one of the detectives later said that just the expression she had on this, and this woman was like only 22 years old when she was murdered and 3 months pregnant. So the detective at one point said that he just remembered seeing the terrified expression on her face when investigating the crime scene, and he said that terrifying expression on this woman's face, it haunted him for years.
Oh, I bet.
Seeing that, and in fact, so I just don't know if I'd be able to handle something like that. You know, it's because then the morticians have to see that themselves, but it's different for them because they eventually become desensitized by it. But for someone like myself, I don't think I could handle seeing that kind of stuff because that would be, in my personal opinion, a true place for nightmares to constantly flood your mind for years.
We're in a way desensitized with TV because things are very graphic on TV.
Yeah, but there's a difference in knowing that what you're seeing on TV is not real and seeing something actually in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if you all are friends with she goes by FBI Unsolved.
Yep, I know who that is.
Okay, so in November, I don't remember. She died. She literally died. She just came out of the hospital not long ago. She was 123 pounds when this happened. She was 63 pounds when she died.
Hey, Jan's in the chat.
Hi, Jan.
He is now running. Who? Who?
And that explains it. I hadn't seen her post anything in a long time, and I just now.
Yeah, she died. And, but the reason I even brought this up, the story, so she had.
Well, show us here that she's back.
She is back. She died. And
we're talking about back. Jan or?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
FBI Unsolved.
Oh, FBI.
Okay.
I was getting confused because, like, just the way you were thinking, are we talking about FBI or Jan? That freaked me out there for a second.
If that happened to Jan, I would not be here.
Oh, but, yeah.
No. She's a mortician, and she had a baby. She picked up a baby. On the way, the baby started crying. It was deceased.
Oh, jeez.
And she heard it. She saw it. And I don't remember how the story ended, like how it quit. But it was still deceased through the whole thing.
Wow.
And that was, we were asking her scariest experiences with the morgue. That was one of them.
And that's another reason why I just don't think I'd be able to see something like that. It's just
they don't all do that. They don't all do that, but that would be something that you would never forget.
Well, and that's like the case I said about this woman that was killed by Richard Chase back in the 70s, that it haunted a detective for years. He said it was one of the worst he had seen in like 20 or 30 years of police work. And what's even more horrifying, and we see this time and time again, especially with murders like this, is this woman, because like I said, she was pregnant when she was murdered. She was married too. Imagine like what her husband, he was away at work. And when he got back home later that night, it literally just for a split second, he saw his wife's body and he screamed and ran out of the house to call the police, because obviously, this was the 70s when they didn't have cell phones back then. So he didn't even see full graphic detail of what happened to his wife, because as soon as he saw, it's like as soon as he saw her laying on the floor, he knew something terribly was wrong. And his parents later, he called his parents too to come over immediately. He did not want his parents to see their daughter-in-law's body, but unfortunately they did anyway. And I mean, I don't know in this case if, because I'm sure the parents would obviously be older, so I don't even know if they'd still be alive today, or even the case with this widow. But one thing tells me for sure, if they are still alive today, even after 45 years that this all occurred, they probably never forgot the horrifying sight from that.
Well, and you know, there are natural, like Jan and Denise are saying, there are natural things. Used to, you know, they bring people home in an airplane, or if they have to transport them, or military, or whatever the case might be. With altitude, air goes in and out, and they make moaning sounds and things like that, which, you know, I guess if you're doing that for a while, you come to expect that. I was when I was working in a nursing home, I got the pleasure of being there when one passed away, and cleaning this person,
Excuse me.
getting him ready for the morgue. And I kept staring at him, waiting for them to move, because I knew it's possible. So I scared myself into things that didn't happen. But yeah, there's a huge range of possibilities that I couldn't deal with. I couldn't do it.
Well, anything involving babies,
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm going to be honest, I know what I'm about to say is going to be absolutely insane, because this is just like what I was thinking about. But this happened a few years ago. Ironically enough, it was involving, because like, as you guys know, I've kind of taken a couple years break from doing this. But as some of you guys know, I've done filmmaking before. And ironically enough, this was right around the time when I discovered again about, even back then, this was a few years when I discovered about this guy. Again, I'm not trying to make it sound like an obsession, but this is when I first discovered who Richard Chase was. And I wasn't sure what it was. I mean, as horrific and as gruesome as I heard involving the murders involving him.
Yeah.
It was such an interesting story that I thought to myself, you know, I'm really surprised there hasn't been, you know, a movie made about this. You know, they did one for Jeffrey Dahmer. They've done one for John Gacy, Ted Bundy. The list goes on. And I was really surprised they didn't do one for Richard Chase. And I had the idea of wanting to make a film about it, even though the chances of making such a film like that would have been absolutely impossible, because for various reasons, not just in regards to the victims' families, but also, like you see with a lot of these movies, you have to set it in that time zone period. So it would have been very time consuming and expensive, but I still decided to give it a try. And I was going to get started like writing on a script, but there was one more piece of information that I had to receive before I would start any type of work about this killer. And what I discovered, it was accidental, but it just changed everything completely. What I had found was the actual crime photos of Richard Chase's victims. And I knew about I heard and read about the graphic details, but I never actually seen the photographs before. And although the pictures, because again, it was the 70s, so once again, even though the pictures were kind of grainy, they had an old-fashioned kind of look to it, these were undoubtedly some of the most gruesome photos, crime photos, I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And that, thank goodness, the faces were covered up, because I don't think I'd be able to, that, just like the detective, I think it would have really haunted me from seeing that. So I'm so glad they blurred out the faces, but the rest of it was just so horrendous. And then after seeing those pictures, the idea of me wanting to make a movie about this, I changed my mind, because it was just something I just couldn't handle.
Well, not every serial killer gets a movie.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not trying to make it for like entertainment purposes. I was going to make it like a dramatization movie.
As far as gruesome pictures out there, I don't think anything can be any more gruesome than that last victim of Jack the Ripper.
Oh, yeah. Well, The only difference compared to these victims from Richard Chase and Jack the Ripper was those pictures. Because again, this was 1978. The pictures were in color compared to the Jack the Ripper pictures, which were in black and white. But they're still horrific pictures to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While Jan's in here, Jan, we need you to say some prayers. So we have one of our family, Joe. His wife is in the hospital. He's very scared. We don't know exactly what's going on. Maybe sepsis, but he's very scared right now and very alone. His son just got there, but
I actually messaged Jan a few minutes ago about this too. I was kind of spreading the word, so she does know about it. I did, believe it or not, I did ask if she wanted to be part of this call, but unfortunately, she's not feeling so good. So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need, not
No,
everybody.
no, we don't need a huge crowd, but that was what I was that was earlier when I messaged her.
Yeah, and just like me, if he wants me on it, I'll be there. But other than that, just let me know what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
That's all we need.
Yeah, so like I was gonna say in your response, like when you said, Adrian, yeah, it's just I guess it's just when you see like images like that, you just never ever forget something like that, and it haunts you for the longest time. I mean, yes, there are times where we eventually become desensitized by it, but there are just, I think, even for the most desensitized people, like who witness that kind of stuff, I think every now and then you do have that one time where you're like, wow, this is like even
Even
where I normally.
sensitize, it's you also got to stop and think, what did this person go through to get put into this?
Yeah, the violence of it would have just been so intense. And yeah, what Ernie just said, the Black Dahlia crime scene pictures were pretty gruesome as well.
That's what I remember when I think of
Oh.
crime scene photos. That's the one that pops up in my head.
Well, interestingly enough, I'll just throw this out. With the Black Dahlia murder, they're actually suspecting, even though it was just an individual killing, especially involving, like the pictures, they're now suspecting that she may have actually been a victim of more of other murders just like that, because at around the same time, particularly in the 1930s, there was actually a notorious serial killer, which was known as the Cleveland Torso Murderer or the Cleveland Butcher, which murdered several people between like 1930 up till 1935. But were some murders that went as far back as the ninth. There were similar murders that went between the 1920s and 1950s, and it wasn't obviously in this case just in Ohio. It was occurring in other states, and they believe that the Black Dahlia may have been a victim of the Cleveland Torso, the same killer. What's also interesting too was that many of the victims that were killed almost the exact same way as the Black Dahlia. They were all cut up, dismembered, but also more importantly, the victims were primarily drifters that this person killed. And you have to remember, this was the Depression era. So these were people that
got to take into account of copycat killers.
Well, that's the other thing too. It could have also been more than one killer. It's very likely, but a lot of these victims were drifters. And you have to remember, this was the Depression era. So these were people like whoever this killer was targeting people that thought, no one's going to find them. So yeah. I'll be, and they are suspecting to this day that the killer had to have either been a butcher or a doctor, because just the way how the cuts were made, including to the Black Dahlia, and to this day they still don't know who did it, as in the case of the Dahlia murder. So even 990 years later, case is still open in the Cleveland Police Department.
Chances are the killer is dead.
Well, yeah, he would be long dead, but the case is still open regardless.
Yeah, but when I think of gruesome, the worst thing you can see, touch, whatever, and I know I have permission. This is not saying something that is out of line. There is, I can't think of anything worse. And to still have your sanity than a gunshot to the head and you're holding your child
Oh, yeah.
and you cannot see that child's face
I know.
because it's non-existent.
Yeah, it's like completely destroyed.
No,
I
go on.
don't think.
Not destroyed. I take that back. Actually, no, I know
No,
what you mean.
it's destroyed. It absolutely is. And with her, you don't have to tiptoe around that. She is very blunt about it. But here's the thing: we can see pictures and freak out. We can maybe walk up on a scene of somebody we don't know and be traumatized for life. But to hold your child, your family, your anybody you know, what would that do to you?
Yeah,
That's if I think if it hadn't have been for her medical training, it wouldn't have went as well as it did.
yeah, yeah,
But to overcome something like that, and I'm not going to say overcome because that's not even, you don't overcome it, but to be able to live with something like that and be able to help other people, be a compassionate person, and be sane. That, if I think about the worst thing that could ever happen, that would be it. And if I think about the best outcome of something like that, that would be it.
yeah, yeah.
Because she has no problem, none,
Well,
helping other people, being sane. Don't ask me how.
well, I just wonder, like, how some people still manage to remain sane when they witness such horrific things like that. Because I forgot to mention this whole thing I was just talking about, this particular serial killer with the Cleveland Butcher. What was really unsettling was about the victims themselves. It's just not only just the gruesome way that they were just mutilated, but more importantly, many of these victims could not be identified. Only like 3 or 4 of them were identified because, very unsettlingly, many of the heads were never found.
But in the end, honestly, they all went the same place. Whether they were identified or not, they went the same place. And that they're okay now. And that's what matters. Um it's those of us that have to stay here and
Yeah,
deal with it that it is the worst because we have to deal with it. I think that's the worst part of it. But people, no matter how they die, it doesn't matter if they drop dead of a heart attack, somebody mutilates them. It's still the same. Family has to deal with it.
well, and that's also, again, it's like when you really think about it too. I mean, as I just mentioned, these victims I was just talking about, they were drifters. They didn't have really much places to go. They didn't have very much family. Again, it was it was the Depression era, so they didn't really have a place to stay. But even if these people were most of the time by themselves, or just decided to stick by themselves, you just know that they did have some kind of family out there. Even if they didn't live in the same state or even the same country, they still had people out there that knew who they were,
Yeah.
even when everybody didn't have homes back then. So, and in this case, if this killer really assumed that, like I said, thought that no one's ever going to find out who this is, or no one's going to identify him. Even back in this case, I was wrong. It was between 1935 and 1938. So even back in the mid to late 1930s, if these guys, if this individual, or individuals, because like you said, it could have been Jeremy, it could have been more than one person, it could have been copycat killers. There was someone out there that was bound to know who the victim was or was related to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any death is, and it depends on how you look at it. It's either a really sad thing or it's a really happy thing, just because maybe they're not suffering anymore. And we all know they're in a place than we are right now. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So, it's just a matter of those of us left here are the ones that have to deal with this.
Yeah, yeah.
And the paramedics and the coroners, the police that have to investigate this and take the pictures and all that, they are left with. And any police officer, paramedic, anybody will tell you that there's certain cases that they go to sleep at night and they see them. They see those cases. I don't care how hardened you are, how long you've done it. There are just certain ones that don't leave you.
There will always be that one that is, that's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, and that's basically what I was explaining, is like, even when you're strongly desensitized, there's that one that really affects. And that's kind of, in a way, like how it was in the case with Richard Chase's victims, because I've seen other crime photos, maybe not as gruesome as this one was, aside from like maybe Jack the Ripper, but it's like what I said, I wanted to make a serious film regarding these actual murders. But then once I came across the crime photos, which was not my intention to begin with, it just felt like it took all the energy out of me. And I just thought to myself, like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not just in respect to the victims and the victims' family, but there was just something so horrific just looking at those photographs. And when you see it again, other than blocking out the faces, when you see everything else in full graphic detail, it really sticks to you for a very long time. And just knowing, again, what these people must have had to endure, and also the fact, too, to a more crazy degree, like I said, he was called the Vampire of Sacramento.
That's what I was just seeing, the vampire.
Yeah, that's what he's known as. And that he actually cannibalized and drank his victim's blood, which is a whole nother level of ghoulish. So it was just an unbelievable. So seeing those was just an unbelievable feeling to me. And that's what really made me step back from doing a lot of, investigations with serial killers. It was that one. And I said a while back, like with my show Nick Files, that I said I eventually was going to probably talk a few times about serial killers, but it's obviously among one of the reasons why I will never show any of those crime photos, not only just because it would be inappropriate and too graphic to show. I just cannot bring myself showing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That particular killer would be the one that Tim and Scott would want to look at.
Oh, yeah, I would definitely
already know it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just, he had such an unsettling looking appearance to him. I mean, it's like he was the kind of guy that you did not want to see, like if you were walking down the street at night or something like that. I mean, if you saw anyone that looked remotely looking like him, I would literally say you turn the other way and run. And he just had all these crazy fantasies, like in his head, like thinking that his heart was stopping, his blood was turning into powder. It was just, he was just insane for the most part. And it just, I don't know what it was. And he chose his victims randomly. These were not like people that he knew at all. He just targeted them randomly. And there was an FBI agent that once asked him, saying how he chose his victims. He said he would go up to each house, testing out each door to see if it was unlocked. In his belief, if the door was locked, that means you're not welcome. So he would walk away. But if the door was unlocked, he saw it as an invitation to come inside.
Wow. And that's why you should always have your doors locked.
He pretty much, I would say, was the kind of guy that really did set the rule of keeping your doors locked, especially at night. So, I mean, there was probably more before that too, but he was probably in my personal opinion, he was probably one of the most perfect examples to always keep the doors locked.
Mm-hmm. Nick, I just found a video that would be exactly what would make you turn around and run.
What is it?
Well,
is it involving roaches?
let's put it this way, Nick. Take Slinky.
She's over here actually sleeping on the couch.
Take Slinky. And think of a cockroach costume.
Oh God.
Hang on.
I was gonna say that was loud.
Yeah, well, hang on. It's better to show it.
Oh God. Oh God, no. No.
There it is.
Oh, well, fortunately it ended. Are those cat costumes?
No, those are cats in cockroach costumes.
That's what I mean. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, Slinky would not approve of that. She does not want anything on her like that.
Well, from the sound, it doesn't approve of anything.
Oh yeah, you know she's always mean.
All right, y'all, we're way past time.
Yes, we are. And we haven't even hit the 2-hour mark. That's what happens when your page doesn't go live the first time around.
Yeah, it's like you always want to try to make it to the 2-hour mark.
Yeah. All right, folks, we are going to call it a night. It appears that the call is still going on, so I'm going to hop into that.
Yeah, right. Well, Joe's not on it. It's just Kate, Tom, and Robert that are on. But most likely, as of right now, they're probably just talking Minecraft. But as soon as I see that, oh wait, Mark just joined the call. So yeah, we probably should get on to the call immediately.
Just let me know what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and call it a night, folks. Thank you so much for playing along with us, and we are going to find out what's going on with Joe and Tanya,
Yeah.
and we'll have an update next week.
All right. In the meantime, have a good night, and also tell all you mothers out there too, have a good Mother's Day.
That's right. Mother's Day on Sunday, and also on Sunday is Adrian's birthday.
That's right.
Yay.
Happy early birthday.
Yay.
He will also be on the Orion Effect.
That's right.
So
It should be an interesting weekend, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. 3 wonderful things, all for you.
Hey, 3 times the charm.
I'll take the 2 and just forget the 1. That way I don't get any older.
No, you don't have that luxury.
No, I don't. My body tells me that every day. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. We will see you next week.
All right. Good night. Take care.
Good night.